Good evening. Nice. You heard me. I don't hear you, so please talk loud. I left my hearing aid at home. If you look at Judaism, both from the biblical texts and from the liturgical texts, the theme that repeats itself continuously is the exodus from Egypt. And for a good philosopher like Yitzhak Greenberg sees that as the ultimate direction of history. History is moving towards redemption, ultimately to the Messianic world, and that the Jews are key instruments in that drama. What I want to do tonight is to call into question, thank you, that claim. Does the exodus from Egypt as a central motif, what does it mean and what is its significance? I mean, it repeats itself continuously. Here comes the most important figure in Reform Judaism. Come on, Howard. Howard, I just want them to know that I back you completely. I can say he loves Israel, he loves Jerusalem, and he loves me. No, it's about time that Reform Judaism asserted itself as a religious movement. And that's an important step further. And when they write about him, they say he's a good dancer. I mean, I was so upset by the way they announced his appointment. You know, like a director of a camp. He is one of the most serious religious people I've met in the Reform movement. Serious, learned, a passion for Torah. I visited when my health allowed me every year, and it was a privilege to be in his shul. So if anyone asks you, do you see his appointment as a step forward? You know what you have to answer. You have to answer to me. Okay. Can't help it, Howard. I love you. Now, Messianism is a very dangerous concept. It affords the opportunity to live in fantasy as to who we are and the meaning of history. As if the world is sort of moving in a direction. Now, there were some philosophers who felt there was a direction to history and a direction of the Jewish people in this history. Messianism allows you, on one level, to just withdraw and say it'll be okay. And I want to learn with you an important Talmudic text. when they are discussing the Messianic era, there's a disagreement between two teachers. One says, Ein Yisrael nigalin ela b'tshuva. Israel will be redeemed only through an act of total moral transformation. That's why we're still waiting. And the other one teacher says, Daye la'avel sheyamod be'evlo. It's sufficient that Israel should sustain its will to live while it is in mourning. And the absence of a messianic reality is a permanent claim of mourning. Churban, Yerushalayim, and Jerusalem then begins to take on this mythic meaning. There's a mythic image of the world moving towards eschatological redemption. Now, to in some way believe, so the Gemara goes into a discussion. If they don't do tshuva, they won't be redeemed. But tshuva is a free act of an individual making a choice for moral transformation. But what if they don't do it? So a strange answer in the Gemara. God will send an evil person to cause them suffering, and out of that suffering will come tshuva. Strange God. In other words, I have to make you suffer, to make you wake up to your destiny in history. Now it's interesting, Maimonides also agrees with the teacher who says that Ein nigalin ela b'tshuva. Now Maimonides was a rationalist. He didn't believe in some way some transformation from above, some miraculous breakthrough in which history takes on a new direction. That's not the typical view of Maimonides. So the answer he gives is that God will make sure they'll do tshuva. He'll make their lives so miserable that the only alternative for them to get out of that misery is to in some way do tshuva and hopefully to meet God's redemptive love. So the Rambam as well in Hilchot Tshuva claims the same thing. Ve'en Yisrael nigalin ela b'tshuva. Now what is that machloket really about? I'm going to claim that there are two paradigms to history. In the modern world, if you ask a Jew where does his consciousness as a Jewish people breathe? What is the meaning of Israel? The meaning is a restoring of peoplehood, restoring of the centrality of community. We are a people, a nation. We're not individuals. To daven, you need a minyan of 10. When you mourn, you need a minyan. When you want to get married, you need a minyan. And what does a minyan imply? Minyan implies that we can't go through this ritual act without the presence of the people of Israel. And minyan is the symbol of the community, the collective of the people of Israel. That's why I'm so strongly opposed when they say women can't be counted in a minyan. If you read my new book, which I'm sure all of you have bought already and reread it the 5th time, I'm not going to lecture on my book. I'm tired of it. Peoplehood is the foundational pillar of Judaism. It wasn't lonely men of faith who stood at Sinai. It wasn't lonely men of faith who were slaves in Egypt. So the whole biblical story is a drama about a collective people. Now that collective people could either be seen as the children of Abraham, and God makes this promise that you will be blessed in the world. The whole world will be transformed through you. You want to make sure this gentleman has a seat? Okay. Now this belief that the Jews were meant to be an instrument of divine power in history, and this instrument is supposed to be manifested in their collective life. And the uniqueness of Israel for the Jewish people is that we are responsible for a total collective life, which means power, health, aged, poor. Go through the lists of the inequalities in life, and we were meant to be the carrier for a new form of social justice. That's what it meant to be, God's instrument, the chosen people, the people who were elected to bring a message of redemption to the world. So if you look at the machloket again, one view held that it's enough that we want to go on living, that we're willing to wait and overcome all the obstacles thrown in our way and still hope. So the powerful category that he sees in history is the Jewish people's capacity to hope and overcome the given realities of the world. War, destruction would not rip out their deep faith that we're going towards a messianic kingdom. Ani Ma'amin, as you sing the song, it's not your fault. I never come early. So I shocked people. I was on time, no? Tell it to my son. Now, the Bible story of single individuals is only in the book of Genesis. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the story of a family, a not necessarily happy family. Mothers are forcing their children to lie and to get the blessing from Isaac. And Jacob comes, and Isaac, he knows how to make a good cholent. His mother told him what he likes, so she cooked for him a terrific meal. And he says, Ata Esav? Are you Esav? So you would hope he would say, Pa, Mom put me up to it. She's so ambitious. She wants my child to be the carrier of your blessing. So Isaac deceives his father into giving him this great blessing. And then Jacob has to go down to Egypt, and he has to suffer because he thought his son Joseph was dead. So it's a story of a maladjusted family. I mean, everyone may think that having two wives is a bracha. If you look in Genesis, it's Saras. I mean, each one, they don't get along too well. And his powerful midrashim of Leah's devotion, and that she slept under the bed and gave her Pelegish advice on how to make love with Isaac. And so she was put up. She lied totally. And then the most powerful line in the Bible, when Esau comes back and he goes to his father, what's about me? I mean, is there only one blessing and you have to keep it for me? Can't you come up with another? I mean, what type of God is this? Why does God force me into deception? Why do I have to be a liar to make sure of the continuity of history? So in some way, it's a very strange book, Genesis. As I say, families, Sarah with the other woman, what's her name? What? And she has to throw her child under a tree because he's dying of thirst. Not very pleasant. I mean, you would have loved to see da da da, a good Bach fugue, nice soft music, with the children following the path of their parents easily and with love. It's a struggle. Why that struggle is impossible to understand. And when he comes back and he says, Pa, me, I'm Esau. Jacob deceived you. And the father looked shocked. And everybody asks, how come there wasn't another bracha? Why, what's a bracha? You know, a few words. And he could have said to Jacob, okay, you have the bracha, but I'm giving also a bracha to Esau. You know, that's mysterious, it's strange. The strangeness is you can't make sense of this people's drama in history. They're told by Abraham that they're going to be in Egypt for 400 years. They're going to suffer there, and it will take a long time before they go free. So we were born in sin. We were born through deception. And we were born by the arbitrary will of demonic power. That's how Genesis gives you. The arbitrary will of suddenly Pharaoh forgot what Joseph did for Egypt. He didn't read the New York Times in the back issues. And fundamentally, Israel finds itself as strangers in a land that they thought loved them for all that they did to save their economy. But that's how Genesis ends. They're going into Egypt. They live in a nice neighborhood. Joseph was able to convince Pharaoh to put them up in West Mountain, Canada. Give them a real royal welcome. Let them feel that I made a difference for them. To get forgiveness for him not telling Jacob all along that he's alive. Because when the kids came home, you picture this scene. You have to have imagination when you read the Bible. Here's Pop. And the kids go over to him and say, Pa, we found this garment. It was in the streets. It was full of blood. Jacob looks, what? That was the garment I gave Joseph. How is that possible? We don't know. We just found this. Did a lion eat them up? Who caused them such? And Jacob's face goes blank. And the kids see it. The kids see how he's suffering, and they say, look, that's the one was your favorite, huh? Look, here's his garment filled with blood. Again, a very lovely family story. So we were born in a disruptive family, maladjusted, deceiving, without justice. Everyone is claiming, what's about me? Is there anything left for me? There seems to be a scarcity principle. There's only a certain amount that could be transmitted. It's a scarcity. It's the most strangest story in the world. I mean, it's a strange God. We meet him as a strange God when he says, I will bring you to tshuva. I will cause you to suffer so much in the diaspora that you will only turn to tshuva to solve your political problems. The story then goes on. And Moses becomes a significant figure who brings them out of a condition of slavery, manipulation, dehumanization. That's our foundational story. And we get back at that foundational story in the liturgy. When we say, God, their firstborn you killed. You have the Egyptians drowned in the sea, but us, we came out on dry land. A vindictive, horrible claim for our uniqueness, for being God's chosen people. And the story goes on, but it's a story about a people. And their longing is to change their living conditions so that they can be powerful instruments for God's thoughts on history. See the problem of abundance of riches. You don't know which one to take. Many theologians, Christian theologians, struggle with the book of Genesis. How does that point to a history of redemption? How does that point to a new world to come into being? Because the argument in the Talmud of Da'ala Avel Sheyamod Be'evlo, it is sufficient that they can hope in the midst of their suffering. Ani ma'amin b'emunah shlema, you have the Jews singing in the Holocaust. I believe with a perfect faith that although he's delayed and he missed the train, he will come. He will come. And you keep on telling your kids, he will come. And they're suffering in their mourning, but they have to learn how to hope in the midst of a tragic experience. So tragedy doesn't destroy hope. That's the teacher who says, Dayo la'avel sheyamod be'evlo. It is enough to sustain your will to live in spite of all your suffering. And the unique strength of the Jewish people is never to give up. Although the conditions of history do not support your beliefs. The world doesn't say you are a unique, chosen people. The world says you're schlemiels. You're nothing. You know, what are you? Look at the people. My metapel tells me, Jay, when he says the city he lives in India, has 400 million people. And I say, Jay, you want to all become Jews? I'm prepared to go through a massive conversion without consulting the rabbinate. 400 million people live in his domain. And we kvetch with 6 million, 7 million. I'm so happy when I go by Shari Tzedek Hospital and I go purposely up to the 8th floor and I love the scene. Every woman coming out of the elevator has a little belly. And I said, good, a new Jew is going to be born. The future of Jewish history is written in the maternity wards. We're having children in a very insecure world. That's the amazing heroism. That we're willing to have families in a post-Holocaust era. Who would want to risk bringing children into a world that you know ultimately hates them? And yet that's the strength of Messianism. Messianism is not a transformed world. It's a world of courageous capacity to hope. In spite of whatever the conditions of history are, this people have an ability not to allow reality to defeat them. We'll get the shovel, we'll build the land, we'll build an army, and we'll start again. And that's the very meaning of Israel. The capacity for a people to start again. That's the greatness of Daya la'ovel sheyamod be'evlo. It is sufficient that they remain Jews in spite of what they see. That the reality of the world has not crushed their spirit. But there's no change. They're just passive sustainer of pain. And the message of a father to a child or mother to a child is, don't worry, it's going to end soon. Now the notion, they said in the Haggadah of Pesach, B'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, each year, regardless of what's happening in the world, and they sing L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. Where do people sing a song of liberation in a dark, treacherous world? That is one of the deepest symptoms of Jewish history. It's a people that refuse to accept the dehumanization of the world. And the symbol of that is that they came back to this piece of land, no water, no natural resources, not invited to any of the Gulf parties that the nations of the world have. No one saying, welcome, Jews, welcome home. No one is saying that. And yet they come. And they built, look what they built. An oppressed slave mentality suddenly is charged with the opportunity to rebuild their lives. No great hopes, no great moral transformations, no great message that they're bringing to the world or leading the world in a certain direction. No, nothing. It's enough that they exist. Try to understand the depth of that. Their willingness to live is their great strength. I'm told often that in Montreal Jewish Hospital, they don't let you die. The doctor's committed to keep you alive. Is there still life? No mercy killing. Life. Celebration of life. That's one view. The other view held that our role in history for redemption is only if we offer a new moral vision to the world. Only if we offer a new moral hope, a new direction of how history has to move. And that's why it requires tshuva. But if it requires tshuva, maybe they won't do it. So Maimonides gives an interesting twist. V'kvar heftichu Torah, shesof Yisrael la'asot tshuva, v'sof galutam. The Torah promises us that Israel will do tshuva at the end of their exilic period. So it's a complex text. First of all, it seems to indicate that there is a fixed text, a fixed time for galut. B'sof galutam. There's an end to galut. There's an end point at which a new history is possible. And the Torah promised us that they'll do tshuva. He doesn't mention an evil king, but the Torah promised, and Soloveitchik takes this promise so seriously. He says you can't believe in Messianism if you don't believe in the Jewish people. That the belief of Messianism is tied to your faith in the Jewish people as a moral force in history. Amazing. You know, that the Jewish people are the carriers of a transformed world, of a new hope, of what is possible. Tshuva is a powerful metaphor for waking up in the morning and living in a transformed world. A ultimate change. Suddenly if people ask, is it possible? The answer is, well, look at Israel. Is healthcare able to be more than that? Look at Israel. Is the treatment of the aged possible in a decent moral way? Look at Israel. That was our raison d'etre. We were going to be the carriers of the messianic dream. And our task was to give examples of how that dream could be implemented. But it was a dream of the people. It was the meaning that the people took upon themselves when they accepted being the chosen people in history. Chosen does not mean that we get extra gefilte fish in heaven or nuchali. And not just to tell a story. We don't tell stories according to one view. We bring about a social and political change in the way governments run their lives. We bring about a new image of what a human being could become. And therefore, redemption is a catalytic category. It's a category that pushes you never to be rested, never to be at ease, but to assert the moral power of this people. The other rabbi says, Messianism is to assert your power to live. This other teacher says, your power lies in believing in your capacity to bring about a moral change in the universe. In other words, we were called upon to bear witness to ultimate possibilities. In fact, I claim that's why they hate us, because we don't let the world rest. We are a people of the possibilities. Peoplehood is a category of the possible. To join this people is to join the possibilities of a new world, of a different world. Have we accepted that model? How do we handle it? And that's why I want to claim that there are two powerful models which defines the Jew in the modern world. Two powerful collective models. If you ask people what their Jewishness is about, they'll say, never again. The Holocaust is the driving force towards the development of a people with power. We're not going to be pussies anymore. If anyone tries to butcher the Jewish people, they'll have to pay a price. So the model is the Holocaust, which the dehumanization of the Jewish people, the weakening, the inability to act, the inability to throw off the Nazis, the inability to sort of revolt. They read the Gemara as enough just to believe in the possibility of messianism. And that power is what makes, for me, the characteristic that defines a Jew. Whenever I speak for the army, and I try to do that as often as possible, what I say is, many times lieutenant colonels come over to me and say, "Do you accept me in your family? I'm not a religious Jew. I don't observe the Sabbath. I don't observe kashrut. I just, I like the Jewish family." I ask them why. What's there to like? Really, what's there to like? So that's a good question. And I tell them, when they tell me those stories, that a friend of theirs was from Russia and fought in the tank corps, and he was killed. Then started the big question, where do you bury him? Where do you bury him? We don't have credentials that his mother's mother was Jewish. So where should we bury him? So the lieutenant colonel comes to me and says, "Rabbi Hartman, I don't understand. He was enough of a Jew to die for this country. He's not a Jew enough to bury him in a Jewish cemetery. What the heck is going on here? What type of perversion of Jewish identity, of the Jewish collective, of the Jewish people? I mean, to join them is an act of heroism. To want to be a member of this people is an act of great courage. Try it sometimes. Try going in different cities, and people ask you who you are. You just say, "I'm Jewish." "You're Jewish? Well, you look so human." "Gee, you're Jewish. Oh, I wish you well. Do you have an apartment for me? I want to live." "Sorry, it's all taken up." And you meet closed doors in universities. You meet closed doors in getting into medical school. So the world is not a hospitable faith. The world doesn't say to the Jewish people, "Welcome, welcome in this great, magnificent world. You suffered enough in the Holocaust." And we thought, naively so, that the Holocaust will eradicate the hatred of the world for the Jewish people. That's what we thought. They would not anymore. Just take them to Auschwitz and they'll change. And we went on pilgrimages to Auschwitz, Birkenheld, and all that. And we invited Elie Wiesel to give all the stories of the God that was hanging from a tree. We all read these stories. But it hasn't brought about a change in the human condition. Our only possibility to live in this miserable world is to stay put. Don't give up hope that you will live a transformed life. Don't give up hope. And that's why even the song of the national anthem is Hatikva, which is hope. What characterizes Jewish identity is the willingness to go on to live. So I tell them, the very fact that you're willing to fight and die for this country makes you a Jew. That is enough. That is my act of conversion. And that you're prepared to die for this country is your hatafat dambrit. Is, when you're supposed to take a little blood. You're willing to give all your blood. I mean, something has happened to the Jewish people. The people have become the carrier of Jewish identity. The people are the ones who in some ways point where the Jewish people are and who they are and where they are going. For Greenberg and others, they're going towards redemption. For Hartman, they're not going towards redemption. If you read my books, I don't talk about messiness. Just in the last book, there's a chapter. We're not going anyplace. I don't believe that history is moving in a glorified dream of justice. I don't wake up in the morning and say, happy am I who live as a Jew, whose destiny is to bring a moral message to the world of kindness, of gentleness, of honesty. So Woody Allen, when he hears certain things about the Jews, says, that's how the Jews live. People know about Lenny Bruce, so that's not Jewish. That's not Jewish. When the Lubavitcher Hasidim went to Eastern Parkway, and they went to see the Rebbe, and the group, together with the other American Hasidim, started to attack them. They started running away. The only ones who were left was the Lubavitcher Hasidim from Israel. And they answered, we're an Israeli, and an Israeli doesn't run. We stopped running. We stopped looking for the exit. We're not wondering where the future is going to bring. Our life is not dedicated to a new future. Our life is dedicated to survival. Sheyamod be'evlo. To will to go on. And when I see the Chayalim, I look at them, I say, you have given the Jewish people the power to believe that there can be a new tomorrow. So you are the new rabbis. I mean, you influence all your cadets. I mean, the rabbis up there are still worrying about which pots they're going to use for Pesach. You meet people. You influence them. You influence them by how you live with them. Try to know the names of your Chayalim. Try to ask them, how is life in their family? My grandchild, Yitzi, used to come to Daniel and myself and say, there's some very poor Chayalim, and we want to gather money to get them shoes. And Yitzi felt that that was his moral imperative. And I remember, never forget, one of my other grandchildren. I was teaching him some Talmud. There was a classical argument between Ben Petura and Rabbi Akiva. If a person is in a desert and he has only one jar of water, what does he do? To drink it yourself, you will live and the other one will die. To share the water, both will die. So what are you supposed to do? So I say, Noam, how can you explain this Talmud? He says, we don't agree with it. Because in my unit, not chayecha kodmim, not that your life takes precedent. Your friend's life takes precedent. He couldn't even imagine that one person would save his life by drinking from the pitcher of water. It couldn't enter his consciousness. The army made him into a collective Jew. The army educated him into seeing his life as sharing in the destiny of a people who want to go on living. I can't emphasize that enough. We take it for granted. So I look at the officers and I say, you are our religious leaders. You are the leaders who will make a difference in the moral quality of the army. The way you act to Chayalim, that you don't embarrass them in public, You find out if they have a home with there's food to eat. You're interested in them as human beings. That's what you're called upon to do. Not necessarily to teach them maneuvers, which is important. But you have to now develop what is called, I love my people. I love my family. They're not great, but it's my family. Why do you love your family? They've been around for thousands of years. I met my uncle in Mount Sinai. And my aunt, I meet her all the time. She joins a progressive shul, and she's part of the minyan. A new hope has to be brought into Jewish peoplehood. My mother used to say to me all the time, "Du wirst schwer zu sein a Yid," in Yiddish. You know that expression? How many of you know that expression? Oh, great. Do you believe in it? It's very hard to be a Jew. And whenever the children would come to visit a family, she would tell us to go into separate doors so they don't count how many Hartman children there are. Or you know the typical custom is to quote a pasuk. You don't say 1, 2, 3. You say Hoshia et Amecha uvorech et nachlasecha ureim v'naseim ad olam. So you have a pasuk with 10 names, 10 Hebrew words. So you're never counting people, because to count people is to make them into dehumanized objects. What you do is you quote a pasuk when you want to see if there's 10 for the minyan. It's amazing. A person is in mourning. I remember when I was a rabbi a long time ago. And in Montreal, there were cold winters. Horrible. Anybody here from Montreal? Okay. Did you come to my shul? You did? Okay. I mean, you have to say Kaddish. And you count, look around. There aren't 10 people. So the present rabbi would say to me, "David, what should I do?" I say, "How many people were in shul?" He says, 10 men and 6 women. I say, "Look what type of minyan you got. You have 15 people for your minyan. Women are part of the minyan? Since when, David?" Since I stopped excluding them. You just have to stop ugly practices. I have to say, God bless this minyan of 15 people. Welcome. Welcome. A new world is now being made. And Israel is going to, you read in the papers of the Haredim and the burning the Israeli flag and all that. And people want to cut off their payas. My father tells me a story. He was born in Yerushalayim, and he used to have beautiful payas. So the British Army was here, and he said they came. They said this would be a good tourist thing, no? So they cut off his payas. And they gave him $5. He felt like such a rich man. He came home, and he told his mother, "Mom, my payas brought me $5. She says, "Shulam, wie ist deine payas?" She thought the whole community would throw them out. So what she did, she took a sheet and covered his whole face so no one would think that his payas were cut, and they would think it's mumps. So they walked safely through the Haredi neighborhoods. That world, no matter how abhorrent I feel at their prejudices, I still separate and celebrate their life. Have kids. Go ahead. Don't stop. So if they tell me they're exhausted, I say, that's no problem. At least make a contribution to the future of the Jewish people. that ethos. What have I done for my people today? I cannot live at the expense of my friend. That ethos is what Jewish peoplehood means in Israel. It's an amazing phenomena. I know when I have to go lecture to the army, I'm exhausted. And they all know, bring Hartman in, because after he finishes this, he feels alive again. When I see them, their innocent faces, people from all walks, willing to stand up and be counted for Jews to survive. Survival is a mitzvah. Survival is a great ethical act. After the Holocaust, to have a child is a great moral challenge. To have a child in the 20th century is an act of courage. And so when I see all their tzitzis flowing out, aesthetically I don't like it. But I like that one guy, I asked him, what are you doing? He says, in America I have to hide. Here I don't have to hide my Jewishness. Let it flow. Let it ring out. So you've come to study, to feel what it means to be a deep Jew. You have to embrace both teachers. One teacher who says the will to survive is adequate. The other teacher says the will to transform the world is what is required. Two models of redemption. Tshuva is a cataclysmic event. And Maimonides says the Torah tells us, promises us that one day the Jews will do tshuva. I was a rabbi for close to 20 years. I didn't see this massive tshuva. Most of my congregants would sleep during my Yom Kippur sermons because they overate. They were so frightened of another Holocaust that they were asking, and I got up and I gave a drasha, which Soloveitchik taught me. You are responsible for how the Jewish people are going to be regarding Torah. And if you don't, you should know you're guilty. And if you don't, you have to go to the cemetery and find where they lived. And the problem is we don't know where they're buried. Now go out as a rabbi. Isn't it a nice message of encouragement? You live with perpetual guilt. So what I did, I said to myself before Yom Kippur, I'm going to ask my shul to forgive me for not teaching them enough Torah. Listen, here I'm standing there, picture it. Hundreds of people lined up to listen to Hartman. And I tell them, for the Torah I didn't teach you, please forgive me. And I would cry. I'm a very sentimental guy. And most of the people couldn't understand. What is he crying about? And I found out that most of them were asleep. As soon as we said Kol Nidre, I was speaking to third dimension. Jews as the elected people of history. We're very far from being that. But it's enough we can hope. It's enough that we have the will to survive. And I wish you strength to live with both models. Todah. As long as I wake up in the morning and I can breathe, thank you, Lord, Modani Lefanecha. I think survival, Eddie, is the great impact. Spinoza felt that, deeply so. You know that. the will to survive, the will to nurture, the strength to survive, is for Spinoza one of the most fundamental principles of ethics. I mean, your presence here on the theme of Jewish peoplehood tells me that the Jews are alive. It's okay. It's not all the time. So, well, as a rabbi, how often did I feel that they were alive? Yom Kippur. Most of the people were worried about their clothes, their fashion, parade. And in my shul, it was a wealthy shul, walked by with their minks. So I felt, God, it's a good people. They want to live. So they created a state. The will to live. And you nurture that will to live by being here. Not to allow tragedies from taking away our celebration of life. When we say Kaddish for a mourner, he's really proclaiming his will to live, and that he has not given up on the future of Jewish history. So I always get upset when I see people inviting scholars who talk about the future of the Jewish people. This one says, well, 60% are assimilating in America. Another tells me, oh, I don't know if we're going to make it in America. No, will we survive? And I see everybody clapping at his lecture because he said to us that he thinks we're going to disappear. And Jews love to hear that. I don't know why. It's a masochistic tendency. Anyone who tells us we ain't going to make it gets an overwhelming applause. And what, you found that true? In your shul that way also? What?
Not in my shul.
Okay. He's one of our rabbis. So when people speak to you about the Jewish people, don't let them go into Nebuch. Nebuch. Oi Gewalt. Oi Gewalt, es ist schwer zu sein ein Jid. Oi. And you get the feeling everybody's waiting to be buried. And I tell them, celebrate life, you're in Israel. Eat falafel. Go on Emigrafa'im and Fress. Go from one restaurant to another. Don't stop. And I'll recommend to you what are the good falafel stores. That's the service I render on the side. Besides lecturing, I'm an expert on falafels. One must not, and the very meaning of Israel is never to sink into despair. No. Oh. No. Oh. Oy, oy, oy. Oy, 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 I hear this. Oy, 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 it's a new technical term. Oy. Kabbalah Shalom, what are you going to cause another makkah to hit us and we'll do tshuva? I don't want that God. I don't want a God who beats me up so that he can make me repent. I don't want to repent that way. I want to repent because I studied in the Hartman Institute for a week. And suddenly I saw the Torah in a new way. And I want to repent, Hartman, save me! Can't, it's too late. Just like by Rivka. One blessing, that's all there is. You have to know that you are the carriers of a new drama. That's what it means to be a chosen people. You were chosen to hope in spite of the ugliness of the world. In spite of what we see. Iran, tragedies, bombs going off all over. To see it, to hate it, and to overcome it. It's not easy. How do you overcome tragedy? When I meet parents who lost their children in a bus bombing, well, that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. The only thing I want to do is embrace them and tell them, go on. Go on. When I see the mother getting pregnant again, I say, here goes a heroine. She's not afraid to bring a child into this world. People who say, you went to Israel? Was it safe? You get the feeling there's people with Tommy guns standing on every roof. Where'd you come from? Hartman Institute. What were you doing? We had a week on community and peoplehood. Uh-huh. Screw you, you bastard. You think you're going to make me go back to America now? After all I paid for. You don't let anything deter your will to live. Try to understand that. Just feel that. I am a Jew. What does that mean? I want to live. I want to celebrate life. Israelis are happy people. You ever see them on television? It's miserable humor, but it's... but it is... You know, when they're in the Eurovision, they get the feeling that it's a song festival. So when people weren't voting for Israel, they would say Poland is anti-Semitic. This country is anti... My kids would tell me, the Goyim won. It's not that they had a better song. No. The world doesn't celebrate our lives. It doesn't. It's too bad. They can have so much fun here. Really. Just walk in the street and see the bellies. And make a bracha. There goes new life walking. I mean, I don't want to suggest everybody here get pregnant. But it's not a bad idea. So when they ask me to speak at Yad Vashem, I get letters from Christian theologians. Professor Hartman, would you willing to address our theologians who are coming to Israel now? We made arrangements with Yad Vashem for the auditorium. I said, can't. I never speak in a place where people feel guilty. I don't need their guilt to pay attention to what I say. I don't want to hear people say, who can say anything about the Holocaust? There's no words and they write 10 books. No words. So I said, sorry, I can't accept it. I have an auditorium next to the maternity ward of Cherry Setting. You could hear my lecture there. And the background music, it's not Beethoven's Ninth, but it's little babies. You see that life? Look. Look. Jews are being born. People make love. They celebrate life. That's a secret. Da'ila avel sheyamod ba'evlo. It's enough we just sustain our will to live in the midst of our mourning. We don't give up. We don't check out. When I wake up in the morning, the Rebbeinu Shem says to me, Hartman, I know your legs are killing you, and you're back. Get going. Oy, thanks for Jay. He schleps me out of the house, and they welcome me into the Machon. I built this place. My son is continuing it in the most glorious way. It is a testimony to my belief in a Jewish people who are going to go on living, who are going to go on learning. So who'd you write your book for Jews? If the Goyim want to read it, I don't mind. Go ahead and read it. If you don't have the book, get it.